Hey guys, I'm Dr. Shannyn Pearce and I'm here to talk to you today about fibromyalgia. So this for me is one of the big pieces to kind of my health story. So when I was 8 years old, I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia. I was put on all kinds of different medications, everything from stuff for my digestive system to antidepressants to pain relievers and sleeping pills. By the time I was 10 years old, I was on several different prescription medications, still not getting any better. And I can vividly remember I actually went into a doctor's appointment around 10 years old, and the doctor looked at a 10-year-old kid who's suffering and in pain and said, well, we think you have fibromyalgia. That's what you've been diagnosed with. Do you know what that means? And I said, no, I don't really know what that means. He said, that means your pain is coming from inside your head. So to me, that was a huge, just kind of discouraging comment. So, okay, I'm crazy. All my pain is coming from my head, but I feel this very real pain and fatigue, and I don't know what to do about it. So it was at that point, at 10 years old, that I made the decision that I wanted to start looking for other answers. So the first thing we did was I got my first chiropractic adjustment, which was awesome, helped relieve a lot of that pain, helped relieve my chronic migraines. But that wasn't the end for me. There was a lot of different layers I had to walk through for most of my life to get to the point to now that I can say I no longer have fibromyalgia. I no longer have those symptoms, but it wasn't just a one thing that I had to find out and fix. There's always kind of a myriad of things that have developed that type of condition or that type of disease in your body. So that's what I want to walk you through today, is if you're suffering with fibromyalgia, or if you've been diagnosed with fibromyalgia and you feel like that's not your answer, like something else is going on, I want to teach you the places that you probably haven't looked that could be creating that chronic pain. So let's just talk a little bit first about fibromyalgia. So I love the typical question mark with the doctor, like, we don't know what it is. It's very hard to find a really good definition of what fibromyalgia is. And if you look at several different sources, they're going to say a whole bunch of different things. So for me, I actually lump fibromyalgia in the autoimmune category because it's something going on in your body, triggered in some part by your immune system and your nervous system, that's allowing you to have that chronic pain, the fatigue, the fibro fog. All of those things are part of how they diagnose fibromyalgia, but those are just the symptoms. So a lot of people will say fibromyalgia is kind of a garbage diagnosis, or it doesn't really mean anything. I agree and I disagree. I mean, I don't think it's your answer. I don't think that that's exactly what is going on, but I do believe it does kind of sum up how you're feeling. But the problem is you still don't know why. So you've been diagnosed with fibromyalgia, you have chronic pain. Has anyone ever told you why? What started that? What in your body created those flare-ups, and why can't you heal from it? So the one thing I fully disagree with is people will say it's a chronic illness you'll have the rest of your life. That's absolutely not true. If you find the right answer and you do the right things, I'm living proof that you do not have to suffer your entire life with chronic pain, but you've got to get to your answer. We talk all the time about the importance of testing, because I can have 10 people walk in with fibromyalgia and we might find 10 different reasons why they're manifesting that chronic pain, and it's different. So if you're going somewhere and you're getting on the same medication as everyone else, you're being told the same thing and you're not feeling better, it's because that's not what's creating your pain. So what I want to do today is walk you through the 4 most common things I see when people have fibromyalgia. Now, there are other things we look at and other things we test for, but by a landslide, these are the 4 things I see happen the most often, and these are 4 of my really big pieces for what we're creating my fibromyalgia. Now, also, I want to make it very clear that you might just have one of these things going on. You might have all of them. There might be more than one reason why you have chronic pain, chronic fatigue, and brain fog. So really figuring that out, peeling back the layers, and making an intentional plan is how you're going to get well. So if you've looked at 1 or 2 of these things and maybe didn't see any improvement with that, or that wasn't your answer, don't get discouraged. You just have to keep looking and keep testing, because there is a reason. Your body doesn't just have chronic pain and flare-ups for no reason. It's telling you something. There's a trigger, there's an irritant. If we can find that and remove it, I 100% believe your body can heal. So let's start with the 4 things, the unknown causes that most doctors don't look for when it comes to fibromyalgia. The first one, chronic infection. And I would say that this is probably the number one thing I go for when someone has any chronic pain, chronic fatigue, or autoimmune condition. The first thing I'm thinking is something is creating a flare-up in your immune system and your nervous system, and typically that's some type of chronic infection. Now that can be anything from a bacterial infection in the gut, maybe you have a parasitic infection, maybe you have a fungal overgrowth, or maybe you have a viral, chronic viral infection like Epstein-Barr. So that was a big part of my story. I had a chronic Epstein-Barr infection that I had no idea. I had never even had mono. So that was my first thing, is when we started looking at some testing. It's like, oh, well, I don't need that. I've never had mono. That doesn't matter, because a lot of times mono goes undiagnosed anyways. You were fatigued, you had a sore throat, they swabbed you for strep, it came back positive, and they said, oh, you have strep. They didn't test any further. You probably had mono at the same time and didn't even know it. Or maybe you didn't have any of those symptoms and you just had this virus in your body. But the tricky thing with viruses, and this is exactly what happened to me, is they can go dormant and then they can reactivate. And they reactivate in times of stress, in times of hormone imbalance, and in times of weakened immune system or strain on the body. So for me, I got so much better. I worked really hard to get my health back. I was doing really great. And then when I got pregnant with my son, I just felt like I lost control of my health. And everything I used to do that worked stopped working. I was so tired, like so tired. I could have slept 23 hours out of the day and still been tired. All of my joints hurt, my migraines started coming back, my digestive issues, no matter what I ate, my belly would swell right up, whether it was a salad or a burger, it didn't matter, and I couldn't figure it out. So we retested, and sure enough, Epstein-Barr infection was back, and it reactivated because of the hormone changes in pregnancy. So I hear a lot of people say that, like, when did you start your fibromyalgia symptoms? When did you start your autoimmune symptoms? Oh, it was after pregnancy, it was after menopause, it was after a death, or a loss. Those are all times that our body goes through changes, and you can reactivate those viruses. So if you haven't looked at the immune system component, the two places I always start with is a stool sample to look for any gut infection, and a viral panel, especially of the top kind of viruses. So any of the herpes simplex viruses, any of the Epstein-Barr viruses, cytomegalovirus, those are all really popular ones that can go dormant in your body and then reactivate at those different times. So immune system is the very, very first place that I will look, because that irritant, that trigger, that chronic infection spreads throughout your body, right? So if it can get into your bloodstream, it's getting to your muscle tissue, it's getting to your joints, it's getting to your thyroid, it's getting to your adrenal glands, and it's creating that all over just pain and fatigue and heaviness. So if you haven't had your immune system checked for chronic infection, that is step number one. Number two, your HPAT axis. That's your hypothalamic pituitary adrenal thyroid axis. So it sounds like a mouthful, but they all work together. So I'll read a lot of articles and different research that shows maybe hypothyroid can be a cause for fibromyalgia. And that's true, or maybe low functioning or over functioning adrenals. And that's also true. Maybe it's the neurotransmitters in your brain. Also true, but those are all controlled by this HPA axis, and having dysfunction in the communication from your brain to your thyroid, to your adrenals, to your body, and then back up to your brain is going to cause a lot of just chaos in your nervous system. It's going to make things overactive. It's going to make you hurt more. It's going to make pain seem so much more intense than maybe it should be, because you're kind of miswiring all of those communications, right? So some different ways that we test for this, and my favorite way to test for it is to first off look, and if you can't see this, I'll post it in the comments when I'm done, look at your adrenal patterns. Are you having healthy, well-functioning adrenals that have cortisol spikes at appropriate times during the day, that are lessening at night so that you can sleep well and rest, which is a huge part of your healing, to be able to sleep well and heal at night? So if your adrenal patterns are off, we know for sure you have to have some altered function going on at the pituitary, at the thyroid level, because they all work together. And here's the thing, everything I'm going to teach you today is also typically kind of connected in some way. When I see an adrenal pattern that's just flat across the board, full-blown kind of adrenal fatigue, the very first thing I think is go back to number one. There's got to be an infection somewhere. Infection or severe inflammation, because something has to allow your body to burn out so quickly that your adrenals just stop releasing that cortisol. And looking for infection would be, again, the next step. So checking hormones, checking adrenal function, and a full adrenal mapping to see throughout the day, do you have the appropriate adrenal response? And there's a lot of things just by looking at your adrenal response that I can tell about your thyroid, about your pituitary function, about several other things in your body. So starting there is also a great place to look, because it's going to give us an idea what other paths we should investigate depending on what's going on there. And if you can see on the top part as well, so the adrenals and the HPA axis are also very intricately connected to your hormone balance. So things like estrogen dominance or low progesterone, things like too much of your DHT testosterone, all of those things are very potent irritants to your body and can absolutely be contributing to your fibromyalgia symptoms. And that might be your answer. Having too many of those things off balance, your body doesn't know how to regulate, and it's sending you kind of mixed up signals, and you're hurt all the time and you're tired all the time. But it's because these pieces of your nervous system and your endocrine system aren't working properly. So checking for chronic infection and then making sure you have good, well-functioning HPAT axis is hugely important. Number 3, food allergies. Now, I go back and forth on this one. I don't think your food allergies are the cause of your fibromyalgia, but they're probably making you feel a whole lot worse. So first off, again, they're all connected. We can go all the way back up to number 1 and look at chronic infection, because you develop these type of food allergies by having leaky gut. So food should not be in your bloodstream. Food proteins don't belong in your bloodstream. But when you have leaky gut, these food proteins are able to get into your bloodstream, and then your body kind of wages a war on them. They release antibodies, they fight it off, and if your body's constantly fighting off these foods that are in your bloodstream, do you think that might make you painful? Do you think that might make you tired? Do you think that could make you moody? I mean, this is one of the things that are probably exacerbating your symptoms. But again, the cause of these food allergies would still need to be investigated, because I have a lot of people who come to me and they've had food allergies tested. I'm like, great, this is an awesome test. What did they tell you to do? Just don't eat them. Okay, but how did they tell you to fix what was creating this? They didn't. You can't just avoid your food allergies and think that's going to heal everything. You've got to fix up the reason you have so many food allergies. You've got to fix up the leaky gut, get rid of the inflammation, support the immune system at the same time that you're avoiding your food allergies. That way, over time, you can get some of these back, but you've got to heal the reason they're happening. So food allergies for me are just a great tool to get you well as fast as we possibly can. And for me, the cool thing was after I had my son, I was getting all those symptoms. This was the piece for me that allowed my pain to decrease really quickly. So one of my biggest symptoms I was having was in the morning, my hands were so painful. They would be seized up when I would wake up in the morning, and it would take hours for me to be able to shake them out and be able to use them again. After about 3 or 4 weeks of avoiding my food allergies, probably even less than that, I woke up and my hands were completely pain-free. And at first I didn't really contribute it to the food allergies until I cheated on my food allergies. Yes, even me, we have cheats, it happens. But I cheated on my food allergies, and sure enough, I woke up the next morning and my hands were stiff and throbbing and painful again. So for me, that was all I needed, was that one kind of whoops, and my pain started to come back, that it became unworth it to me. Now, a lot of people, when I show them their food allergy list, I hear oh, how am I going to avoid all of these? This is so hard. There's so many of them. These are all the things that I like. And yeah, I get it. This right here, and I'll post it too, this is my original food allergy list. I have 29 different food allergies, including some of my most favorite things in the world, like coffee. So at that point, I was so tired, I was in so much pain, I was drinking coffee just to stay alive, I thought. But little did I know that was making all my symptoms worse, and that was making my body not able to heal. So, but a couple other kind of things you would never think of. My food allergy list, I have pinto beans, cane sugar, which isn't good for you anyways, cinnamon, clove, chocolate, coconut. I use coconut oil for everything, and I'm allergic to coconut. Coffee, cranberry, ginger, grapefruit, lemons, limes, dairy, going through some of those things, it's stuff you would never think you're allergic to. Would you think you were allergic to lemons and limes or cinnamon and clove? If I didn't test these, I would have had no idea, because we were eating very clean. We were eating really healthy, but I was having probably at least 5 of these things on a daily basis that were creating inflammation in my body, that were making my symptoms worse, and they were allowing my body to manifest more chronic pain and stiffness and headache. So by avoiding those, really helped me speed up my healing process in combination with taking care of the immune system and some of the other things going on. So if you have never had your food allergies tested, I highly recommend it. It's one of the first tests we do on majority of people, but it's not the only test you can do. I'll have people call sometimes and say, I just want to get my food allergies tested. And that typically goes in the conversation of, okay, but no matter what comes back on your food allergies, you have to go in and figure out why your body is creating those responses. So it's very rarely, it's never the only test I recommend. There's always something else you have to look at with your food allergy testing, but it's a great tool to know and something you need to know about your body so you're feeding it the right things and not things that are creating inflammation or immune system trouble. So looking at your food allergies. And then the last one's big. I mean, I have been doing a lot of research about chronic pain, chronic fatigue, autoimmune conditions, and fibromyalgia, because there's so many people that suffer with those more than ever now. More than ever in our history, people are getting these autoimmune and these chronic issues. And this last piece is something I don't think gets addressed nearly enough and has a lot to do with your body's capacity to heal. And that's having any type of physical and or probably both emotional traumas. So a lot of the newer research is showing that genetics play a little bit of a part. They do, you have a genetic tendency. But then there's this whole other side of science called epigenetics that are showing that you can turn these genes on and off by the internal environment in your body. And one of the most powerful things that happen inside your body is your emotions and your thoughts. So you've probably heard the term thoughts become things. That's just not a catchy phrase. That is the truth. What you think will manifest in your body. So if you've had some emotional trauma, which was also a big piece of my story, my dad left when we were really young. It caused a lot of emotional turmoil, and I really feel like I internalized that, and it allowed my body to have more space to create illness and disease instead of creating health. So not addressing the emotional type of traumas is huge for healing. And when I sit down, especially with women, we tend to hold on to that a lot more. Not that men don't, but for whatever reason, women just hold on to our pain. And I can picture the woman who has had maybe an abusive relationship, maybe there's been some sexual abuse or even just emotional abuse, a loss, stress, job stress. Or maybe it's just that you have too many things going on a day-to-day basis that you can't handle. You're a mom, you're a wife, you work, you're trying to make food, you're trying to pay the bills. All of that stuff can be very overwhelming to your body. And if you live in a constant state of stress, you are physically creating unhealthy cells and inflammation inside your body. And for a lot of people, that's kind of hard to understand, but it is one of the biggest pieces of health and healing, especially the natural way, that has to be addressed. If you can't release those negative emotions, if you can't balance or manage your stress, I can give you every herb in the world. I can give you the best eating plan. We can adjust you every day for the rest of your life. If you are manifesting those hard emotions or the depression or the anxiety, you're probably not going to get the fantastic results that you're looking for. So I've really started working on this piece a lot more with my patients, teaching them things like EFT, guided meditation, ways to release those negative emotions. So keep up. In the next couple of weeks, I'm going to do a series on that and actually teach you how to do a lot of those things in real time, things that you can implement when you're having that stress, because without those tools, it is very, very hard to heal from chronic pain or any type of autoimmune or chronic disease. So don't kind of push that to the side. I think a lot of people want the herb and they want the diet plan and they want the information, and they forget that there's going to be some lifestyle work. You have to create an environment that is open to healing. So we're going to do a whole series on that coming up in the next couple of weeks. And then physical trauma to your body. So do you have subluxation? Do you have damage to your nervous system? Have you been in a car accident? Did you have an injury? Is there something going on in your body that's blocking your healing potential from your brain to your body? So that for me was actually the thing that spiraled this whole thing. At 8 years old, I had a head injury. I had a big old tire fall on the top of my head, gave me whiplash, and it actually severed some of the tendons and the ligaments in my neck. And that went undiagnosed for a really long time. But that was the very first thing that altered my brain to body communication and allowed me to develop all of the symptoms that came after that. So if I would have known that right from the get-go and I was able to stabilize that and balance it early on, I truly don't think I would have ended up with as many health issues as I did. So don't forget, you've got to check your nervous system. You've got to check your spine, get good x-rays, get adjusted by a chiropractor who looks at the structure and function of your spine. So doing corrective type work and spinal molding at home to make sure that you have that good brain to body communication. So the last piece is both the physical and also the emotional trauma that you're holding on to in your body. So again, if you're suffering, if you have fibromyalgia, if you have any autoimmune condition, if you have thyroid issues and you haven't looked at those 4 pieces for you, that's your homework. I mean, that's like today. Get on the phone, find a doctor who will test those things properly for you. And if you don't want to have one in your area, call us. Most of these tests are things I can send you to do at home, and we get the results back within 2 weeks. There's no excuse not to get these things tested, especially in this day and age. It's so easy for us to get this information into your hands. So if you don't have a local doctor, feel free to call the office and get set up with a call with one of us, and we'd be glad to help you through that, because just like me, you don't have to suffer, you don't have to have chronic pain, you don't have to have the fibro fog, you can have a clear mind, but you've got to look at the right things to do to make that happen. So follow me also, if you don't already, on Instagram. I post a lot of different information about chronic illness, about ways to live healthy. I do a Thyroid Thursday segment and a Women's Health Wednesday. So any of the kind of practical tips on how to live your life in a natural and holistic way, I post on my Instagram page, which is at Dr. Shannyn DC. So I hope you learned something today. I hope you're going to get your test done if you haven't. And I just wish you guys a very happy and healthy hump day.